Hi, and welcome back to this week's podcast episode of Web3 Compass. Today I'm going to talk about the IPFS network. And you might have heard it in my voice. I'm quite excited about this podcast episode. I also will be critical about the technology. And in the beginning, one short disclaimer, all opinions in this episode are my own. And I have a special introduction. You might have heard about OpenAI and their tool to generate artificial artworks. You probably also have heard about their chat tool where you can ask the AI questions. And I want to make the introduction of this podcast episode by asking the OpenAI chat GPT, I think it is pronounced, on what is IPFS. And now I want to cite the answer which the AI gave me. And the answer is the following. IPFS, InterPlanetary File System, is a protocol and network for storing and sharing files. It is a distributed file system that allows for users to access files from multiple computers or devices, rather than just a single server. This means that files are stored in a distributed network of nodes rather than one central server, which can make it more resilient and faster to access. IPFS is often used for hosting websites and other types of content, as is seen as a potential alternative to traditional centralized methods of storing and sharing files. So first of all, I'm blown by this answer. And yeah, IPFS, they describe themselves on their website as a peer-to-peer hypermedia protocol designed to preserve and grow humanity's knowledge to make the web upgradable, resilient, and more open. So it's basically a distributed network for storing and sharing data. It consists of several nodes and it is run by Protocol Labs. Protocol Labs is an open source R&D lab, and they say about themselves that they build protocols, tools, and services to radically improve the internet. And yeah, two of their projects is, of course, IPFS, and another one is Filecoin. Filecoin can be described as a decentralized storage network, so basically a peer-to-peer version of AWS S3. If you're working in the IT industry, you probably know AWS S3. It's probably the most popular storing option. Yeah, I don't want to go deeper now on Filecoin, but if you're interested in an episode about Filecoin, just write me a short message on the Discord server or via LinkedIn, and I will do that. But now let's focus on IPFS. So how does IPFS work? So first of all, we might have to think about how does the internet work right now. So basically, if you want to access a file, you have to type in the IP address or the domain name. This is called location-based addressing. So you basically have the location where you want to access. And IPFS now does content-based addressing. So first of all, you can add a file to IPFS. Then it is split up into smaller chunks. These are then cryptographically hashed. And finally, they are given a unique fingerprint called content identifier. So, and if you want to search, for example, for this file right now, you type in the content identifier or the hash. So you know what you're searching for, and then you're searching for the content instead of the location. Yeah, what can be some real-life examples of IPFS usages? I would say probably one of the most known examples is Pinata. And Pinata refers to data from blockchains. So it's also a storage option. And basically, if you have like an NFT, you can link your image to the NFT by using Pinata. What is here the argument? I had in the beginning of the year an episode with Dennis where we also talked about it. So if you have an NFT, it's basically an entry on the blockchain, but the image is often not on the blockchain. It is linked to the blockchain entry. So, and if you have now a centralized storage and the picture is on the centralized storage and it's linked to the NFT, what happens, for example, when your subscription runs out, or what happens when the data center burns down? and all this stuff. Yeah, so then you can use Pinata, who uses IPFS, in order to have the file stored in a decentralized or distributed way. But also here you have to ask the question, how does Pinata make money? They have a free plan and they state on the website it will be forever be free, but they also have several more expensive subscription models. And of course, even if they state that the free plan will be forever be free, you never know if they have like an insolvency, and I hope they are doing well, but you also have to think about these cases. Of course, then they cannot offer a free plan. But we will also talk later about data and data loss on peer-to-peer networks. So what's the incentive of being part of IPFS? And simply explained, Filecoin works here as a decentralized market for storage. So if you're a part of the IPFS network, Filecoin works here as more or less as a paying unit. And let's talk about other interesting use cases. Another one is Wikipedia, and it's also often cited by IPFS because I think in 2017 Turkey blocked Wikipedia. And then some developers just put Wikipedia or the Turkish Wikipedia on IPFS so people could access it. Another use case, which I also know here, there was an article, is about Taiwan. And they are using Cloudflare and IPFS to protect their infrastructure from potential cyber threats. They are also concerned about an invasion. So no central server in such a case could be bombed because the website is also stored on IPFS. I also read about Berti, I hope I pronounced it right, which is a messaging app with a sophisticated security approach. So also very interesting. There are some case studies on YouTube which you might want to check out. So, but I also have some further questions, I would say, or some limitations on the network. So the first one is privacy. And I read a great article on Medium, which says that host nodes can be tracked and users also can be tracked. So IPFS is a public network and everything could be tracked. And also other peer-to-peer protocols such as BitTorrent offer by themselves no anonymity options. The next one is scalability. So IPFS states on their website that today's web is inefficient and expensive. And I cite now here from the website, HTTP downloads files from one server at a time. But peer-to-peer IPFS retrieves pieces from multiple nodes at once, enabling substantial bandwidth savings. IPFS makes it possible to efficiently distribute high volumes of data without duplication. I would still say that this might not be true because you have to have a lot of nodes and a lot of users to be efficient. I also asked some experts on the topic and they told me that it is extremely difficult to replace large-scale systems with peer-to-peer alone. So I want to break it down. Of course, IPFS also has storage costs, or every peer-to-peer network, because you need hardware, you need electricity, and you also need people to maintain it. And now I question myself, can gigantic companies run on peer-to-peer? Because if we say the Web 2 is moving to Web 3, this must be the case. And I found some data from August 2021, which says that IPFS has 2 million unique weekly users and they are operating 200,000 network nodes. And yes, I'm critical, but I think these these statistics are quite impressive. I also read about users of BitTorrent, and I was very impressed how many people are using BitTorrent. It was in the tens of millions. I'm not sure if the data is still accurate, but I think they had at their peak over 150 million active monthly users. And now coming back to IPFS, the data also said that they have 125 terabyte of gateway traffic in a week. And this is a lot, but I also have to say, in today's era, we are using zettabytes of data. And a zettabyte is a 1 with 21 zeros. So a 1 with 21 zeros bytes, and a terabyte is a 1 with 12 zeros. And for us humans, it's incredibly hard to imagine this exponential difference. So also from a money perspective, the difference between like a million and a billion is gigantic. It's absolutely crazy. And the same is here with data. So I asked the question, can large, gigantic companies run on peer-to-peer? And peer-to-peer technology also, I would say, had a hype at around 2010. And as far as I saw it on the market and from my conversations with other people, it decreased in a lot of cases. Anyway, still very impressive statistics. They also say on the website, so IPFS says as another argument for the technology that today's web can preserve humanity's history. They state here, and I will also cite now, the average lifespan of a web page is 100 days before it's gone forever. The medium of our era shouldn't be this fragile. IPFS makes it simple to set up resilient networks for mirroring data, and thanks to content addressing, files stored using IPFS are automatically versioned. Yes, that's an argument. But I also want to say that once a file is uploaded, it cannot be guaranteed that it can be deleted. And in Germany, there was like a famous case where I think it was a businessman who had like an insolvency in the past, and it was like 10 years ago or something like that. And it could still be found on Google. And then he sued Google, and it was decided that people have a right of being forgotten. So I think this is also very interesting, because if you have, let's say, a very large peer-to-peer network and something happens, there will never be the possibility that it can be forgotten. On the other hand, and I also have to mention it, I think in today's era, a lot of scandals or other data can be deleted. So it's also a problem, and it's also in the book, The Network State, where you, for example, have one source of truth. If you have a lot of data on the blockchain, and if you have the data stored, then it cannot be deleted by regimes or by people who want to influence it. Or if you have a war, and after a war you want, for example, to have your land and your property back, documents can be deleted, and I think it happens more often than we think. And then you have really a single source of truth. Of course, everything is dependent on the technology. But I think this is a very interesting point. Another point IPFS mentions on their website here, they say, today's web is centralized, limiting opportunity. The internet has turbocharged innovation by being one of the great equalizers in human history. But increasing consolidation of control threatens that progress. IPFS stays true to the original version of an open, flat web by delivering technology to make that vision a reality. Okay, and now I have to say I might have here a conflict of interest, so I try not to be biased, but I work for Cloudflare, which is a large US tech company. and through the network of Cloudflare passes 20% of the worldwide internet traffic. And we also have the vision to build a better internet. And I think the argument from a lot of companies and people in the Web3 space, and I stated it before, I don't think that centralization is always bad. Of course, it has downsides, and we have to be aware of it, and people should check it in order to have, in order to have like a competitive market. But I also think that there are so many good things coming with the centralization. We have a very, very good usability, and this is also key, right? So the usability of these big companies is oftentimes just so much better than using, let's say, open source systems. Okay. and not always, of course. And I also know some developers might scream right now, but I mean, for mass adoption, and I think this is true because it is like, it portrays the reality. Often the systems, for example, Microsoft or Apple operation system is just easier to use than, let's say, Linux. Maybe this might also not be true for everyone, but I think there is a great usability and also a lot of advantages coming with these systems. Or let's just take the possibilities to build applications. If you want to start a startup, you can build an application on Cloudflare Workers. You can build an application on AWS, on Google, on Azure, right? So I think you also have to think about it. Your starting costs are very low. Of course, you have to pay for the service, but you also get a lot from these companies. And I think there's still the possibility that people can put hardware in their basement and then start like a tech company, but it just has like incredibly upfront costs, and then also maintaining all this might not be economically sensible, right? So I think, of course, we have to be critical about centralization, but there are also a lot of benefits. And I think the Web3 space is often hating on centralization, of course, because they want to make everything decentral. But I think, as everything in life, it's neither black or white, and we have to look for the right path. And also, technology is neither inherently good or bad, right? I think also Niall told me about this in the podcast episode. I think I'm citing him right now, but it's how you use it. And I think this is also true. And I think the future of the web will be a mix between IPFS or decentralized systems, blockchain technology, peer-to-peer technology, and also the, let's say, classical Web 2. Let's go to their last point. They say today's web is addicted to the backbone. They state here, today's web is addicted to the backbone. IPFS powers the creation of diversely resilient networks that enable persistent availability with or without internet backbone connectivity. This means better connectivity for the developing world during natural disasters or just when you're on flaky coffee shop Wi-Fi. Yeah, and I read a paper which was about a peer-to-peer video delivery network, which was also found on the IPFS website. Now it's not there anymore because I think it was outdated. Somebody, I think, made like, like a suggestion on GitHub. And in the paper, it also said that peers join and leave a network frequently. And I think looking at the history and also about looking in the future, we have to think about that data can be lost permanently. So if a technology standard cannot survive, even peer-to-peer networks might not be forever, or probably nothing is forever. But I think this is also very important. What happens when there will be no market for Filecoin? What happens if the open source community in 20 or 30 or 40 years gives up on this technology? Yeah, so overall, I'm always quite critical. This was something I wanted to be after a lot of the crypto scams and scandals in the last month, or at the whole, or in the whole year, I would probably also say. But I still think it's a very interesting technology, and I also want to note that I'm very new to a lot of these topics. And for me, it's incredibly interesting to study it, and I would love to hear your opinion and your thoughts about it. So please feel free to join the Discord server. I really want to have there more traction. Yeah, also huge thanks to everybody who is always supporting the podcast. Please also note I might not be able to make such an episode every week because some of the technology is completely or quite new to me, and I don't want to tell you bullshit. I also don't want to claim 100% truth of what I say. If you know something which is not correct, please also let me know. I will at least post it in the Discord channel or adopt it in the next podcast episode. But now I have talked enough. I wish you a nice, nice day. And yeah, hope to see you soon. Cheers.